Hey guys, it's Rachel from Moments to Milestones, and today we have a techniques class for you. We're going to be focused on embossing powders. We're specifically using the a trio from Wow embossing powder. So you'll see that in your kit here. So this is what the kit looks like. You're going to get 3 different colored embossing powders and a clear. And you're going to have card kits inside and some other, another packet full of just card bases to practice some techniques on. So we're going to do all of that today in the video. These are the 3. We're going to make a thank you card, a make-a-wish card, and this is a birthday tag. On the back you can tuck in a gift card. So we're going to make those. And I'm going to go over briefly. There are no written instructions for this kit, just this video. So if you bought a kit, you are in the right place. I'm hoping I learned from class today. We started with techniques and then went on to the cards, and we kind of ran out of time. So I may have bit off more than we can chew. So I'm going to start with the cards, and then we'll go through the techniques, any that we might have missed at the end. So when you buy a kit, there's kind of some additional supplies that you'll need to follow along. So let's go through those. So the first thing you're going to need is obviously a, oops, sorry, I hit the camera, a heat gun of some kind. You're going to need some embossing powder. So we used Wow Embossing Clear Ultra Slow Drying, but Versamark pad would work, or any other embossing ink you may have. We also used from Wow, this is the ink pad refill, and it's called a ink pad refill conditioner and freestyle tool. It comes in a roller form, so you can use it to fill your pad, but there's also some cool techniques we can do with that, so we're gonna give that a try. And they also sell that same ink in a, this one has a white lid, and it comes with a brush, so kind of like a nail polish brush. So there's some other fun applications you can do with that. Let's see, what else? So we're going to use some stencil paste. So really anything will work. Today we're using Sizzix dimensional paste. Whoops. So we're going to use that in a stencil. So you're also going to need a palette knife of some kind. I'm just going to use a plain white plastic palette knife and a stencil of your choosing. We have a couple to choose from today. We have Simon Hurley. This one is called Tiny Circles, and this is the Crafter's Workshop Starry Stars. So we have those 2, as we're also going to use the stencil with just embossing ink. So I picked 2 different. You could use the same one. It's just mostly about learning different ways to use it. I also have gold and white embossing powders on hand. If you don't have those, you can just use what we have in our kits. When I emboss, I like to use an anti-static powder tool. So this is old style. It's in a bag. I have a little clip on there to keep it off my fingers. There's lots of different companies that have different versions. This one's from Pink and Maine. It's a brush and the powder comes out. So anything like that will work. You may want a sentiment stamp of some kind. You will have a strip of gold glitter paper. I'm going to show you that you can emboss on glitter paper. And so I just have a sentiment stamp for that. I also have a embossing folder. This is what this one's called. Party Dots, maybe? Something like that. From Spellbinders, SES 037, but any, I wouldn't suggest a 3D embossing folder here, but just a regular embossing folder. Inks of your choice. Today I have chosen Distress Inks in Evergreen Bow and Shabby Shutters, but one single color would work, and with that you'll need some blending tools. I have a blending brush here and then a smaller one here from Pink Fresh. You're obviously going to need foam and adhesive to put your stuff together. Did I miss anything? And parchment paper. That's not something else we're going to use. So we will get started. So I have a big stack. This is just scratch paper that I'm going to work on and use to, you know, pour my powder, pour it back in. So I just have a big stack of paper here. And one other thing I forgot. So I used a blending tool. We're going to use that in our stencil later, and a brayer if you choose. So I know that was a lot. I'm not sure that I listed the brayer on the thing, so it's not necessary. I'll show you another way to get around that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the cards. We're going to go ahead and start with this tag first, the sending birthday hugs. So this one's going to be real simple. We're going to get out our kit. Looks like this. And you have some red line adhesive, and then this is just another brand of double-sided tape in strips. And we're going to get out our embossing powders that came in your kit. So you have Oceanside, Newport, and Laguna. And oops, I'm just going to start with this top strip here, and I'm just going to peel off the backing. And I'm going to start with green. I'm just going to take, and I wish I would have started from the bottom. I can remember now. It likes to stick to the backing, but that's not too bad. So if it does, you're going to want a brush. I'm just going to take off that excess. So that's on there. And I'm just going to keep going. I could emboss and then peel it off, but I'm going to keep going because I don't really want to melt my adhesive. So that'll stay on there until we're ready. I totally missed that. Okay. And our next strip, we're going to do the lighter blue, which is the Oceanside. And so I'm just going to pull off that backing. And put the Oceanside on there. Give it a good shake. I'm going to take that off of. And then on to the darkest blue. Actually, if you fold your tag out, I forgot about that. We have one on the bottom as well. So let's put the darkest blue on there. And you can really do any color you want. I did green on the sample, but since I have the dark blue out, I'm going to use the dark blue. All right, so the powder is on. Put that back in with and we're going to heat it up. So the key is to have a nice warm heat tool. So I'll turn it on, get it heated, and then we're just going to run over it and melt those spots. Actually, before we do that, I forgot one thing. So at the top of your tag, you have this red that doesn't really match anything. So there's a couple things you could use. We could try this brush. If you don't have that, I am just going to use a Zig two-way glue pen. So we just need something for the embossing powder to stick to. So I am going to just cover the red. And I'm going to make mine green. Put that on there. And I did 2 coats on mine, so we'll do one and see how it goes. And if it's not covered enough, then we'll do another second coat. I'm going to go ahead and emboss. All right, so we heated that powder until it was nice and shiny, and I can still see that red through there. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with a second coat. So I'm going to get my glue pen going, so it's got lots of glue coming out. A nice thick coat of glue around there again. Back with the green. And that's covered better. Alright, that looks much better. And then because this is two-sided, probably should do that other side as well. So I'm gonna let that cool. Yeah, it's not cool yet. So while we wait, I'm gonna get out some, actually I'm just gonna use wet glue, I think. And I'm just gonna put glue on the edges. And then I'm just gonna hold that closed, and that will create my pocket for my gift card on the back. So let's go ahead and emboss this backside. This time I'm going to try the brush because it'll probably give a little bit better coverage. They also make embossing pens, so that would also work here too if you had that. We'll do the green again. And I may have used too much. We'll see how that goes. So that looks good. So you should have a piece of mesh. I'm just going to roll that up on one end, stick it through the hole, make sure that's dry. Yes, it is. Pull it through like that, take my twine and just tie a bow around the top. Go. You have your little birthday tag, super quick and easy. You can tuck money, maybe even a little piece of candy, a gift card in there, and you're good to go. So that project is completed. Let's move on to our thank you card. So your kid is going to have a completely white. I started this in class, but I didn't finish, so I could finish it here. So yours is completely white, and what has been done, we have stamped an image and embossed in clear embossing ink. And so this is a resist technique. So this is where I use any ink will do. You can see, you can pick any color you want. Any colors, you could do a rainbow, whatever you want to do. But what I did was took shabby shutters, and I just took the smaller one, and I just went in the centers of all the flowers. And as soon as you put ink on them, you can kind of see everything pop. So I put that in the centers just so they were a little darker. And then I went in with Evergreen Bough, and I'm just gonna go in and put ink down over the rest of it. And we're going to trim this down, so if you don't get all the way to the edges, that's okay. You can go with a light hand here or a heavy hand, whatever you prefer. heavy. And distress inks, they're going to dry back a little bit. So even when you think you have it where you want it, it's going to dry lighter. All right. So that's good. And then I'm just going to take a rag, clean rag, and I'm just going to wipe over. And I'll just get any ink that might be sitting on top of that embossing powder so it brings it back to bright white. I have my trimmer here. I'm going to trim this down to, I believe, 3.5. So I'm just going to take a little bit off each side. So 3.5 wide, and we want 5 in length. You're going to have a piece like that. And that is going to go in the center. Still looks a little bit, I don't think I cut it quite right. What did I say it was? It should be 4 3/4 by 3.5. So it's centered. There we go, that looks better. And I did use foam on this. So I'm going to put a little foam behind there. Some scissors. Center it on my card base. And then you have, I'm going to move this scratch paper for a little bit. And then you have the word thank you and a shadow. So I'm going to glue the thank you onto, I need some tweezers, where are they? I'm going to glue the thank you onto the shadow. And then the thank you is just going to go on there straight down. So I'm going to put glue back here where I can hide it. Thank. You tucks right under there. And then I finished off my card with some stickles. You could do glitter or rhinestones in the centers of all the flowers. So I am using, what is there a color? I think it's just clear stickles. This one, particular one's by Dilutions. And I'm just going to put little, and then we'll set it aside to dry. Just a good way to add a little shine. But you could certainly use wet glue and glitter too if you wanted. Same thing. So there's that. So that one is finished. All right, now we're gonna make our last actual card here before we get on to the techniques. So you should have 2 white stars. These are just cut from chipboard. I had a big Sizzix steel rule die, cut out some stars, put some white gesso or white paint over them so that gives them a good surface. And here I cut out, this is a Tim Holtz die, Make a Wish, and you should have a white panel. So right now we want the white panel and the stars, and we'll start with the stars. I'm going to get back out my scratch paper here. So we are going to get out our ink pad. I'm going to start with the largest star, and we're going to take it and press the white side into the ink pad. Just press it real firm. All right, we're going to flip that over, and I use the dark blue Laguna. I'm just going to cover the whole star. Palette knife here. I didn't get the best coverage. That's okay, we can come back. So let me put that back in my jar. I'm gonna bring this over, and then I have a pokey tool, any kind of piercing tool. I'm just gonna hold my star down while I heat it up. Alright, so because I didn't get great coverage, you can do two things. We could try a brayer here, or we're just going to wait for it to cool down, which it is, and we're going to press it back into the pad. This time we're going to be a little bit more firm with it. And repeat. Alright, I think we're going to need one more coat here. Alright, that has cooled down enough for me to stick it back in. And I'm just going to give it a good press. And this should be the last one. All right, I'm happy with that. So that one's done. I'm just going to set that off to the side to dry. And now we're going to repeat that same process with the smaller star, only we're going to cover it with the green, which is called Newport. So let's... And I got good coverage. I wonder if my ink pad is drying out a little. Alright, so the green is done, but we're going to do something a little different with the green. So I could go back in and put another coat, but then I got good coverage on that, so I'm good with that. So we are going to, so I'm going to show you on my sample. I'm going to turn it and hopefully the light is catching. This one is super shiny and this one is not. So this one we just put the color on, and this one we put clear over the top. So also in your kit you have this clear gloss ultra high, and the ultra high means that the fragments are bigger of the embossing powder. They're bigger chunks, and so they'll obviously spread out more and give you better coverage. So we are going to, you can do two things. You can reheat it and while it's hot put this on, or we can just do what we were doing before, and that is putting it in the pad. And as long as that is dry, it's not going to hurt your pad at all. Alright, so we've got that covered, and now I'm going to put the clear over it, and I want a new sheet of paper. I don't want to get specks of other colors in my clear embossing powder. So that one's clean. So we're going to put that clear over, and you can see those are bigger chunks, and look, there's a little chunk of something in there that I don't want. Okay. Tap off the excess. now I'm going to heat that again, and we'll get that nice shiny glaze on top. All right, that is beautiful. I love that shininess that it gives, so you can kind of see the difference. This one's also shiny because it's embossed, but this one has almost like it's got enamel on the top. So those are two different ways you can use that. So we're going to set those off to the side to dry, and we will make we're going to grab the other panel we have that came in our kit. And the first thing we're going to do, so you can do this two ways. If you have the embossing brush, you can use this, and kind of like a little paintbrush. So I'm going to like paint the edges. So just so this is one way you can do it. And I am going to use, let's see, what's the other color? The light blue. Here it is. The ocean side. And I'm going to put powder on it. And now I'm going to get that edge, like on my card, how I have around the whole outside edge. Okay, so I'll heat that. All right, so I'm going to repeat that process, and you could go around all four edges. I just wanted to show you what I was doing. But we are going to go the other way. I wanted to show you that would also work. This pad is broken. I keep forgetting that. Let me get a different one. Is to take and drag along the edge. So I'm just going to drag the ink along the edge. You'll probably get a thicker line, which is okay. It'll work the same way. Okay. And then I'll heat that. So I'm going to get all the edges done, and then we will come back. All right, so we have all the edges done, and I kind of went for a distress look where there's parts that aren't. So I know I have a big gap there, and I'm okay with that. So this piece is going to fit on top, and then what I want to do is I want to put some ink behind where the Make-A-Wish is. So I'm going to take a pencil just to make sure that I'm where I want to be. So I'm just going to make a little mark right there and a mark down here. So I know I want to go beyond those. And I'm getting pencil on my panel there, but I can erase those marks. Let me get an eraser and do that. Okay. So I have those marks there, and so I can again go in and brush that way, or I am just going to take my ink pad and I'm just going to press it down on the bottom. So just like so. All right. And now I'm just going to I'm going to start with green here on the right side. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the light blue, which is the ocean side. And then the dark blue. All right. And now I'm going to heat that up. You might see me a lot heat from underneath. And that is like I was blowing here and the particles, the powder is blowing everywhere. And so to avoid that, if you come from underneath and heat it up first, and then once it starts to melt, then you can go on top. That will keep you from, especially if you're using like a glitter embossing powder, you're just going to blow away all the glitter. So starting from the bottom is always a good way to go. All right, so I'm going to clean up a little bit. So I have those two pieces that I made and this panel here. So I'm just gonna, I have powder everywhere, and that's gonna happen when you're using embossing powder. So this is a sparkle sweeper by Judikins. I don't know if this is something you can still get, but it's made to get rid of glitter. Also works great for embossing powders. Okay. I don't need that anymore, so let's go ahead and put our card together. So we have, I still have stuff everywhere. Here we go. All right, I'm going to put this panel down, and this is going to go on top. Oh, it looks great. So let's glue down the embossed panel. And we could have done all that right on the card base, but the paper does get kind of warped sometimes when you heat it. So to avoid that, I did it on a panel first. And then this piece is going to go right over the top. Now I popped mine up on the first card. This time I'm just going to glue it straight down for time's sake. Just center that on there. All right, and then we're going to put our two stars on. So I've got one here, and I popped up this green one. So let's put some adhesive on the back. This one I'm going to put a foam square on. And have it slightly overlap, like so. Alright, and that card is finished. Alright, so we got through the cards, and now you have this kit that should look something like that I have prepared some different panels and things for us to experiment with some different techniques. So let's just work our way from the top. So I get back out so we already, on those stars, we embossed over them, we also enameled. So now I'm going to show you something a little different. So for this is where you're going to need the parchment paper, and I'm wondering what I did with mine. Here it is. I just have a piece of parchment paper and my wood heart. So I'm going to stick that heart into the ink. Make sure it's good and coated. Okay. And now I'm going to take those three colors and I'm just going to pour right onto the wood. Okay. So just little piles of the color. I know it probably feels like you're using a lot here, but I'm telling you, I've done a lot with these and I still have half a jar, and I've done a lot of techniques. We use them in class, so. And then the dark blue. So you just want to make sure it's covered everywhere. You don't really want to see any of the wood. All right, so I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to take that parchment paper and just going to lay it right over the top. now I'm going to heat. That way, if I don't, that powder is going to go everywhere when I blow on it. So the parchment paper is going to keep it in place. And I'm going to heat until it's melted, and then I'm going to peel off the parchment paper. You can see it coming through. It's starting to melt. All right, I'm going to pull back and see where we're at. Alright, so there's a few spots that didn't melt all the way, so I can either take my heat tool right to it, I can add more color if I'm not happy, or I'm going to put that heart right back on there where it was. And another method that we learned from Marion at WOW is to pounce. So you're going to take your heat tool, and you're going to, while you're heating it, you're going to just tap just like this. You don't want to hold it, and you just want to do it nice and quick, and that will get all that, and it will help mix it up and get it nice and hot. So pull it off. Very pretty. Now if I want more bright colors, these colors when they mix they kind of turn to white, so I'm going to add some more color on. I want some more of this dark. Some more green. So I'm just going to do another coat because I want to see more color. Now when that dries right there, you can peel that off. And you could use that on a card. It's pretty on both sides. I'm going to just rub that off, put it back on, and do it again. This time I'm not going to pounce. I moved it to make sure it was all melted, and now I'm going to peel that off. And then this time I'm just going to go, well, you can see I've got powder there that's not melted, so it's probably going to go everywhere. So let's pull that out first. Now if you did that where the heart was and melted it all, that would be cool as well. I'm just going to heat up on top. And you can see by doing that, I brought some of that color back to the front by reheating it and melting it, and it makes it kind of move around. So once that dries, I could put some clear on top and it would be really shiny. So this is a cool way to use if you have any of those wood shapes in your stash. It's a cool way to use them. Next is a button. So we're going to take that button, stick it right into the embossing ink, and I'm going to use gold. I have a big old bottle of just gold embossing powder, and I meant to grab that a different way. I'm going to put my tweezers in the holes of the button like so, and I'm just going to dip it in, shake it off, and melt. While it's still hot, I'm going to give it a second coat. could have used these on there as well and made a fun colored button. Now where my tweezers are, when I pull them away, I might leave a mark. I'm going to make sure it's dry first. And just by heating it up and then it'll smooth out any imperfections. So I also want to heat up my gun and get that off the edge. So I'm just going to heat it up and then wipe it. Just be careful you don't burn yourself. All right, and I'm going to heat that button up to make sure it's nice and smooth in the center. Awesome. All right, so now we have a button. Also in your kit, you have this fastener or a large brad. And we're going to do the same thing. I am going to hold on to it with my tweezers. I'm going to press the end into the ink. Roll it around, get the edges. And I'm going to make this one a dark blue. So there's ink on it. Oops. And I'm going to press it in there. And this is probably going to take a couple coats. So I'm going to heat it up, and then when it's all melty, I'm going to stick it back in. You can make your own personalized colored brads. So there's that. Very pretty. I'm going to let that cool off inside the tweezer. Alright, so working with the next thing we have, this is a glittered like cardstock. So it's not paper, it's a little bit thicker. It's kind of coated on the back, but this is glitter cardstock. So we are going to emboss a sentiment on that. So I have a stamping positioner tool here ready to go, and so you will just need, this is where you're going to need a sentiment strip of some kind that will fit. I give you a pretty good size, any kind will do. I have a pretty bulky strip. I'm using this Hero Arts, what's this one called, Golden Poppies, but I'm using the Happy Birthday at the bottom for my sentiment. So I'm going to ink it up. And I'm probably going to stamp it twice. Now here is where you can, this is glitter paper, but I'm still going to use, I don't want it to stick anywhere I don't want it. So the key with the sentiment is to not, you don't want to smush really hard. Now this is a big bulky sentiment, but something that's thinner, you certainly could just keep, if you're using a stamp positioner, you can go over it over and over and over until you get it the way you want it. You don't need to smush, because that will change your results a little bit. So I'm just lightly pressing. I think I'm going to go one more time just to be safe, because I can't really see what I'm doing here. All right. So, and I'm going to use white this time, which is not in your kit. This is opaque, bright white, super fine. So you could try a color on here if you don't have, oops, I'm flipped around. So there's birthday and happy. So that stuck on there pretty good. And I'm just going to heat that up. I did also try this on a foiled cardstock, And you can see, if I hold it up here, you can see the blistering that happened. So this particular paper didn't take that very well. So just to let you know. But this one took it well. It's a nice thick glitter paper. And so there it is. We have the happy birthday on the glitter paper there. And because of the texture on the glitter, you're going to see that come through, but still a cool effect. So there's that. Let's see. Okay. All right. For this next one, this is where you may find a brayer come in handy. If you don't have one, you can simply take the pad paper. I'm going to use a brayer. So I'm just going to ink it up, and then I'm going to cover the whole surface of this. If you are ever going to do which I didn't put it in the kit, I wish I would have, but if you wanted to do a die cut word, I would suggest using a brayer as well. That gives good even coverage. All right, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna bring back that gold that I had, and I'm gonna pour some in the lid. This is just regular gold embossing powder. And this, I wanted to show, this is not in your kit, but this is Opaque Bright White Ultra High. So this was super fine that we used for that sentiment, and this is Ultra High. And I'm gonna open them up and see if you can see the difference. So one is like powder or like sand, and the other is more chunky. So the Ultra High is more chunky, and there's different things you can do with the Ultra High. So I'm going to kind of show you the difference. So that's sticky, so I'm just going to sprinkle. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, because if I did, it would stick everywhere, because there's sticky ink all over the cardstock. So I'm just sprinkling it around. So there's that. And at the same time, I'm going to take some of this Ultra High, and you can see the flecks are a lot bigger. And so when you melt them, they're going to be bigger. And so for this one, you're definitely going to have to come from underneath. So I'm just going to pick it up and just find a spot to hold on. I'm going to get rid of that. It's all mixed up together, so I'm just going to pitch that. And I'm going to heat from underneath. It gets all melted. All right, so that one is finished, and what's cool about that is so now you can see the bigger white flecks, and that's from the Ultra High, and you can see like the dusting effect of the gold. So with the white you could create snow, or this would be like a galaxy effect. It's very cool. You could die cut words or shapes out of this, or use it, but it's kind of a cool, a different way to use your embossing powders. But you'll definitely need to heat from it. I mean, you don't even need to put the ink down, but it sure helps. And now it's not sticky because it's dry. So there is one technique. All right, next on our pile we have a sheet of vellum. Now you can emboss on vellum, but you have to be delicate with it. So I'm going to show you my example. So I have a strip here and I fold it in half. So on this side, you can see this blister, this defect here, and that's because I left the heat on it too long and it started to melt the paper. And so this is what it should look like. So what we're going to do is use this embossing ink pad refill conditioner and freestyle tool, and this has that roller on there. And so I'm going to put down the anti-static powder. I'm going to get this started over here, and you can do whatever. Like on this one, I just went back and forth and rolled it. You could do lines, you could do like a plaid, checkerboard, you could add circles, really anything goes. You could spell out a word if you wanted to. And now I'm just going to pick a color. We'll do the light blue. And I'm actually going to, because there's ink on this, my powder will stick to it. So I'm going to grab a new sheet and just put the powder on. And you can see where I drew. And that roller will work on anything, cardstock, whatever. We'll just use the vellum today. So I'm going to heat that one up. So this one, I'm going to make sure my gun gets good and hot before I bring it to the vellum to help prevent that, the burning. And I am going to start from underneath. Once it turns shiny, just keep moving on. Now my gun is hot enough. So that tool is pretty cool, and if you have this kind of embossing powder or ink pad, it's your re-inker. So if you have it on hand, you would have that ability, and you just roll it on there to fill it up. You would also have the ability to kind of freestyle some different stuff and use on your cards. So there is vellum. You can certainly do sentiments on vellum, which I do quite often. All right, so there's that. All right, next we have a black piece of cardstock. And so this is where we're going to use a embossing folder. So there's kind of two ways you can do this, and I'll show you my examples. Let's see. So these were both done using embossing ink and this folder. So on this one, we embossed it as usual. Then we took a brayer and went over the part that was raised with ink, put down the embossing powder and heated it up. And that's the look we got. On this one, we opened up the embossing folder. And on the flat side, where things are recessed into it, we put the ink here, ran it through our machine, and then put the powder on. So they both work, both a little bit of trial and error. I probably will go ahead and show you both just so that you can see how to do both. So, and somewhere I think I already have, if I can find it. All right, this is already embossed, so I can show you the one like so. So you'll just need to emboss it as normal. So we'll start with that one. So that is embossed, and now it has these raised circles on there. So now I'm going to take the brayer again and just go over so that it's, and really what I should have done, and now I'm mad that I didn't, was use my anti-static powder tool. It will definitely help with this technique. We'll see how it goes. All right, so now, and I want to get a good coverage, so. All right, feel good about that. And this time, I mean, I can go back and use the gold again. I think I might use one of these colors. I'm going to use green. And so it's just going to pick up, and the key is making sure you get enough ink brayered on there. It's kind of hard to do because you can't see it. And you could go over it again if you're not happy with your coverage. And you can see where there is, I'm going to get out my brush, in here where there's, the anti-static powder tool definitely would have helped with that. But I'm okay with that. It's kind of a distress look, so it's more about the technique, and once you play around with it, you can perfect it. So once we have that on there, then we can go ahead and heat it up. All right, so that is a cool effect. So now you got a shiny, pretty effect with that. And then the other way to use it, still going to need a brayer. So I'm going to clean up my surface here so I don't. And this is clean. I cleaned it. So I'm looking, this is raised and this is pressed in. So this is where I want to put it. So I'm going to put some anti-static powder over that. And now plastic likes to create this static cling, so let's see if that'll help. I'll also put it over this black cardstock before I put it in there. But I'm going to go ahead and if you're looking from the side, you can see where it's shiny, so you should know if you have it. I would suggest going back and forth both directions, getting a nice layer of ink on there. Okay, and I'm going to put that like so, and I'm going to go run this through my die cut machine. All right, so I don't know if you can tell, you can see it's darker where it's pressed in. So we've got good ink coverage, and I think this time I'm going to do a, oops. Do some dark blue, do some light blue, and then green. Just to show you what it looks like on black cardstock. Very pretty. right. Okay. And if there's any embossing powder where you don't want it, a brush definitely will help. So that is really pretty. I love those. I love those colors on that black. So here it is with the green or the gold. So that is a cool way to use embossing powders and your embossing folders. All right, it looks like we have 2 more card panels, and so this is where our stencils are going to come into play. So this one was done. I'm going to try to hold it up so you can see maybe the depth on that. This is using the Sizzix dimensional paste with the embossing inks, or the powders. And then these are also using the powders with a stencil, but we're going to use the, you could use a blending brush. I used a ink blending tool. So we'll start with the ink blending tool because that's less messy. So I'm going to use the star, and I am just going to tape my stencil to the back just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to take my ink, and then this one I just have dedicated to the Wow powder. And I'm just going to ink it up good and just press that ink into the stencil openings. So swirl it in there. Make sure you get all right. So then I'm going to pull that away. And this time I'm going to use Oceanside. And just cover. And I did not use my anti-static powder tool. I don't know why I'm having a hard time with that today. So one thing I showed in class, if you make that mistake and yours looks like mine where there's just stuff everywhere and you feel like it can't be salvaged. Every piece of cardstock has 2 sides. So what I'm going to do is take this and I'm just going to brush it off. Okay, and I'm actually just going to put that back inside my container. Okay. Now I could, if I could see it well enough, I could line the stencil right back up, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to use the back side. So I'm going to do this again. But before I do it, about did it again, I'm going to put down the powder so that it won't stick where I don't want it. All right, so now I'm going to repeat that process. All right, now I did not do the best job with getting my ink everywhere that it needs to be. But with the embossing ink and a stencil, like using it with that kind of tip, you'll get more of a distressed look. You can see on this one kind of that same thing. I didn't quite get it everywhere. So you can tape it down, pull it back if you don't see good coverage. You can put it back over and get, which is what I did to get that good of a result. So that is stencils with embossing ink. And now, which would be my preferred way to get good coverage, is going to be with some kind of paste and a stencil. So this time I'm going to use this Simon Hurley Tiny Circle stencil. And let me get a new sheet here. Okay. So same thing, I'm going to get a piece of tape, tape it to the back. Use my it's not so important on this one because you're using the stencil paste, but I'm still gonna tape it, or I'm still gonna do that. All right, so I'm gonna open that up. And there it is. I have a palette knife ready to go. And so it's just white paste, and I'm going to get some on my palette knife. And I'm going to start at the top and then slowly pull it down, keeping my stencil knife in an angle. And I'm just going to work my way across. You certainly don't have to cover the whole thing if you don't want to. Alright, so I feel like that's good. I'm going to put the extra in there. And then with stencil paste, you're going to want to clean everything right away, or at least throw your stencil in some water. I'm going to clean that. Alright, so I'm going to pull that off. And I'm going to leave that tape on there so I have a place to hold. And I'm going to go throw this in some water. Alright, so there is my sheet with the stencil paste on it. And so now I'm just going to go in, and any order, you could do all one color. If you have gold or other colors you want to try out. I'm just going to go about a third of the way. And it's a little hard, it's kind of sticky on the outside, so. Right. And then I'm going to go in with the light blue. There we go. And then we're going to finish with the green. Alright, so I have that panel with the embossing powder ready to go, and then I suggested maybe letting this dry for 2 or 3 minutes, slightly dry before you emboss it, and that's only because when I did my, and I went right to it, which you can, but you have to be careful that it won't bubble, so that dimensional paste could bubble on you, and if you don't, I was looking for my sample to show you. Here we go. So you can see areas here where it bubbled there, and then later it peeled off. So you might want to make sure that it dries slightly. This one, during class, I let it dry for a few minutes before I before I added heat, and there was no bubbling and nothing peeled off. Now the edge is probably where I was holding on to it, but yeah. So we'll let this dry for a few minutes and then we'll heat it up. All right, so that one is good to go. And that should finish up our techniques. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning about using embossing powders. This is a little bit more advanced than just, you know, kind of your basics, but I think it was kind of fun to dive in and learn some new ways. So these are the cards that you'll make and the tag. And then you should also end up with some other panels. You could have a panel like this that you could use to make a card. You should also have some kind of, this was one I made during class. This was another. So your vellum panel you could certainly do something with. You should have a white and a black panel with an embossing folder. And then your other stenciled piece, a piece you could die cut, a sentiment strip, and your heart, your brad, and your button. So lots of goodies. Now that you've learned how to use your powders, you could certainly take these things and go ahead and make some other cards with those. So if you have any questions, you can certainly leave them here and I'll do my best to get back to you. If you would like a kit, you can check us out on our website from momentstomilstones.com. This would be the Wow Embossing Trio kit. And you'll get these 3 colors along with the clear, which I'm not sure where I placed that, but you'll get the clear ultra high as well, and then you'll get all the stuff to make these 3 cards and to make all those sample things. So I hope you enjoyed and learned about embossing powders. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.